Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the call and response. And also, thank you for attending the first of 3 town halls that align with our pillars, our aspirational pillars. And this, of course, is about being an employer of choice. And it's a critical pillar because there is no way we can achieve greater student success or research excellence unless we retain and recruit the right talent. And so there's no way around this one. You've got to get this one right in order for the other ones to work. Because ideas are just ideas. But it's people who make ideas work and make those plans come to reality. And so if we want to continue to move the needle, which we do meaningfully, we've got to make sure that you, our staff and faculty, feel valued, empowered, and informed in ways that allow you to do the job to help us achieve. Now, I'm grateful to each and every one of you for the jobs that you do, because each one of your roles helps us become a better university each and every day. But there are clearly things that we can do better. And yeah, we pat ourselves on the back, but not too much, because again, it's all about process improvement, getting better as a university. And I am grateful to introduce the next person to this podium, our Executive Vice Chancellor, Ann Bordelon, to come and share her thoughts on the employer of choice. Ann's doing a great job for the university, and she is helping us to move us in the right direction. And when you like something that we've done, that's Ann. When you don't like something that we've done, that's Ann too. So I just wanted to make that very clear. And Ann, thank you for your leadership, and you take the podium. All right.
I feel like that was a brief summary of my performance evaluation. Well, first of all, thanks for being here. With the weather so nice, I'm a little bit surprised how well attended we are today, which tells me how important this is. Provost, I hope the attendance is just as good in the classroom today as it is here. But really, seriously, thanks for being here and showing your interest in what we're doing to further the university as an employer of choice. While we've made a lot of progress in our journey here, we still have a long way to go. We're building infrastructure to create an entire talent management system. And being an employer of choice, it's not an HR initiative that HR works on and that HR delivers. Sure, I think our HR department has a really critical role in this process, but every single person who earns a University of Arkansas paycheck has to participate for this to really work in the future. Employer of choice is not a destination. We're never going to arrive and be done. We'll always be working on it. And I just want to make sure everyone understands that this is an iterative process, continuously improving upon what we build. And the most frequent question that I get when somebody brings up employer of choice is, what does that mean? And when I think about it in 5 ways. I think about building a strong organizational culture. Some of our culture is really strong, but some of it needs to be worked on, and we're going to do that. Offering competitive compensation and benefits. Most of you are aware that we have been on a almost 2-year journey, I think, delivering a classification and compensation system for staff, as well as faculty and graduate assistants. And that's really the foundational element. We had to do that first so that we can do the other things. And what are those other things? They have to do with career growth and development, creating career paths and training opportunities and visibility to those things. Leveraging employee feedback and performance. I know you're going to, and employee engagement, I know you're going to hear about that from our panel today. Thinking about what is our employee value proposition, why is it that you stay here at the University of Arkansas, and what are the things that we should be really amplifying as we recruit talent to the university. Thinking about new performance assessment processes. We have very inconsistent processes across campus, division to division, supervisor to supervisor. It's very inconsistent. Something that we are working on right now is trying to figure out what makes sense for the future and for each level and each part of our university. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach for sure. And engagement surveys. We want to know, why are some employees engaged and others aren't? Are there certain units where engagement is super high? What are they doing that makes that employee experience different than another unit where maybe it's not as high? And then also, while doing all of that, measuring our success in terms of employee turnover, engagement survey results that I just mentioned, job application rates, other metrics. We're really just now positioning ourselves from a data perspective where we can really track this at a granular level and see trends, and I'm really excited about our ability to do that. And with that, I'm going to invite our panel up. First, Amy Ochoa, our Associate Vice Chancellor for Human Resources. Jim Gigantino, our Senior Vice Provost for Academic Affairs. And Ashley Ingram, our Director of Talent Development, and about 3 other things. And they're going to talk in a little bit greater detail about some of the things that I just mentioned. And with that, I'm pleased to welcome Ann Shelley to the podium, who's going to moderate the discussion. Ann is our Assistant Director of Talent and Leadership Development, and she's an amazing facilitator. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, come on now. Act like you're in a beautiful sunny day. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Hi. You know, one of the things, Chancellor and Ann, I was thinking as you were speaking, that employer of choice is really about every single one of us in the room. I promise I'll get to these fabulous folks on the stage here in a second. But raise your hand if, like me, you supervise people at the University of Arkansas. This is your pillar. Raise your hand if you don't supervise anyone, but you're an employee at the University of Arkansas. This is your pillar. Every single one of us in this room have the responsibility to make this pillar a reality. This is a journey, not a destination. We are all on this journey together. So I would ask you to not end the conversation with the folks here on the podium, but to have conversations after you leave with your team, updating them on your progress regarding creating an employer of choice environment here at the university. How many of you would say, I have done that? Can I see some hands, maybe? How many of you say, all right, high five a hand if it's in the air. We can do this. If you do not supervise people as an employee, have you talked to your other team? If you love working here, have you talked to folks about why you love working here? If you're challenged by some things, have you talked to your supervisor about what challenges you're facing? All of us have skin in the game when it comes to being an employer of choice. Can I get a woo pig for that? They're not a big call and response crowd, are they, Chancellor? All right, I'm trying. Can I get a woo pig? Woo pig. All right. Now let's go to our esteemed panel here. You cannot be an employer of choice if you do not invest in your people. So Amy, one of the first times I recall connecting with you, and I think when you first started here, you dove head on into the classification and compensation project. You spent a lot of time on that. Can you give us an update on where we are now from your lens of starting with that project and moving forward?
Absolutely. You're right. There we go. Is it on?
Pull it up and look closer to you.
We've implemented class comp, I'm happy to say, and I think it has gone very well. We've gotten lots of great feedback on it. I think it's important to understand just how important this was. As we talked about earlier, we cannot move the needle forward without getting this right first. This is the foundation, and I think we did that. The investment that the campus put into this, millions of dollars, right, Ann, Chancellor, that we put into it, I don't think, that's ever been.
There's a
That's
call and
never-
response.
Right, it's never been done before on this campus, and that's a really big deal. And I think that people should continue to reflect on that and the importance of what we've done there. So we've made a lot of strides in ensuring everyone's mapped to the correct profile. There's still some things that are coming through that we, correct when we need to, but we're in a really good place from a foundational standpoint to start building on that and thinking through now career progression and performance management and all the things that come along with class comp, while also ensuring that we keep an eye on that market rate, right, which we committed that we would do. And I have a great team of class comp people that look at that every day and every time something comes through to make sure that we don't fall behind, and that when we have requests to change a profile, that we're sticking to our model of ensuring we're not changing something in one college that could impact across the board and placing that disparity back there. But we're in a great place when it comes to class comp. I'm proud of what we've done, and we're going to continue to move the needle forward.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for your work on this issue. I want to just kind of open it up to the entire panel. Could be you too, Amy. Mm-hmm. If there are folks sitting in this room that are still have concerns or are still on the fence about is this going to have long-term value, what would you say to those folks?
I would say if it's going to have long-term value, I would say if they're questioning it and they have concerns with that they should go to their leadership and ask their leaders, what does this mean to me, right? What's the value? I would go to my supervisor and ask, what's the value to me? What's my career progression? What would that look like? And, we're always open, whether it's the staff side or the faculty side. Jim, you can chime in there on the faculty side if you want, but ask questions. If you're not sure, ask questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of value in terms of this project, in terms of going forward. From my perspective, anytime you give a historian the microphone, they're going to talk about history at some point.
All right.
So we can get that out of the way. Historians love to talk about the idea of, shared experiences and how shared experiences form, tight-knit bonds. And I think this class comp process that we went through was really something that connected the university and kind of advanced this idea of the one university, that we work together collaboratively to, think about how to advance everyone. And that's why, I'm sitting up here from the provost's office talking about this project, because we're all in it together. That the hundreds of hours that I sat in a room with Amy working on the class comp project and other members of her team, and thinking about how this maps across all of our different divisions, all of our different colleges, and how this interacts with people and the types of work that they're doing in very different spaces on our campus, but very similarly. That, I think, really has paid some dividends, because that interaction that we've had, that every faculty, that every administrator who worked on this project, every staff member that worked on this project, we have a better understanding of what each other does, and it's really blossomed over the last year to really thinking about collaboration on a broader scale. And I think that's a huge dividend win, because it's literally, Amy texted me this morning about an issue and we got on a call and talked through some of the things that are happening. Those are powerful interactive communications where we're working together collaboratively across the divisions, across campus, thinking about what's in the best interest of our campus and how do we advance ourselves together in this one university model. So I think that's an intangible, but it's something that really grew out of this class comp project. And I think people need to know that we're really working in a kind of a new level of collaboration, which I think is amazing.
Thank you, Jim. And I know from being part of the Division for Finance and Administration that Collaboration is one of the core values that Ann instills in all of us, certainly a personal core value. So in the spirit of this being about all of us, one question you can answer with your teams is, what have you done to really break down the silos and collaborate across lines of faculty and staff or with other divisions or departments? It's so important as we move forward to do that. Speaking of moving forward, I want to now kind of turn from what has been to where we are going with some of the employer of choice initiatives. And you touched on this earlier, I know Ann did, on performance management. So I know that there is a lot going on performance management. And if you read the UARK News, you know that we ask for questions to come from the campus as a whole. So some of what I'm asking are questions from the campus, and some are about topics we felt important to cover. This is our first question from the campus. Regarding performance management, have we considered requiring more than just an annual evaluation, say 30-day review processes, check-ins, some kind of quarterly check-ins? Where are we in how we're trying to drive forward performance management as part of the Employer of Choice initiative? And again, I'll turn to you, Amy, and then maybe Ashley would want to add something.
Yeah, for sure. This is perfect timing. We are in the middle of an RFP process to define a new performance management process for the entire campus, faculty and staff. We're really excited about this because I don't think there's anybody in this room that would deny that we do not do this well today. And we have got to make this change in order to reward employees for good, for going above and beyond, in order to hold employees accountable where they need to develop more. We have got to put a performance management process in place that allows managers to do those things, and we just don't have that today. And so our leaders have agreed to invest in bringing people in to help us do this, and we want to do it the right way, right? This is not just a hurry up and let's get something really quick in place before next year when we do eval. Got to do it right. We need a change management plan, and we want the full spectrum, not just the performance management. We want everything that comes with it, competencies, career pathing, all of those things that will blend into the development of our employees and make us a campus where we are the employer of choice. Ashley, I don't know if you want to chime in, or Jim. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would add in, as we're looking at reevaluating our performance management, there are things that you as employees and supervisors can even do on your own right now in terms of really starting to create this culture of continuous learning and feedback. And so one thing we can do is start to normalize asking for feedback ourselves. And sometimes that can sound like a scary question, what feedback do you have for me? But we can frame it differently. What's something I should start, stop, or continue doing? Even as leaders, asking that of your direct reports. I do that with my team frequently, and then I try to act on that feedback. That helps the feedback become more digestible. And as we're looking at the RFP and figuring out what will work for our University of Arkansas campus, know that some groups are already looking at and doing quarterly conversations. They're already focused on continuous and ongoing feedback. So we are going around and talking to different units right now and the colleges to learn what does feedback look like within your units, what's working, what's not working, so we can take some of that feedback into account as we look at more consistent structures across the campus.
And I think this is the beginning of a multi-step process. This is something where, we're thinking about how do we bring someone in with some expertise that has done this at other campuses, and then really how do we engage the campus community in thinking about how to structure this, what works for our campus, and then what works for how, we can really look at performance across a variety of different, spaces, because all of us do very different jobs. What an outreach person does in the College of Education and Health Professions is very different than a researcher in the College of Engineering. That's very different than a police officer with UAPD. And how do we think about a system that can capture and look at all of those different pieces of that puzzle on the staff side? And then on the faculty side, This is going to be a multi-step process, working through our faculty governance system, working with the departments, working with faculty to think about what makes sense for our campus in a variety of different spaces. So I'm excited to think about, this journey ahead and thinking about how we evaluate what we're doing, but also as someone who, previously, led a all-staff unit on the staff side, how are we thinking about our staff and thinking about giving them the tools to not just succeed in their current jobs, but mapping where they're going to be in the future and thinking about, as part of their evaluation process, what are the things that you need to be doing to think about exploring what your next step is. We don't do that very well, on a regular basis here, in my experience. And I think we can do better and really think about working with our staff to think about what is their next step, what is their aspiration, what is their goals, and then really thinking about how we can give opportunities within the current role to thinking about that. And then on the faculty side too, how we think about a lot about tenure and promotion. We think about, well, what's the next step after that for a tenure track faculty member? And then on the non-tenure track side, what's the next step after the first promotion? How do we think about supporting that faculty member in the long term to a long-term, really fruitful career at the university? And I think that's the process we're just starting to embark on, and I think everyone in this room is going to be involved in that process.
Yep, and I think just one last thing to answer the question a little more specifically. In the meantime, while we're doing this, the question was specific to midterm reviews and or 30-day review processes or check-ins.
Quarterly reviews, yeah.
Quarterly reviews. Supervisors can do that. You do not need permission to do that within your unit or your department. If that works for you, go for it. Do it. We encourage that. That would be ideal because you want to know throughout the year how your people are performing, and guess what? They want to know too, so they're not surprised at the end of the year. So don't wait for permission or for HR to send you some, standard form to do a check-in. Do a check-in. Do a quarterly review. Do what's right for your own department.
Thank you so much for those answers. 3 very specific answers, and I want to go back to something that each of you had in common that I don't know is necessarily natural for us, especially in a university setting. You started with, we don't do this very well. And being transparent and acknowledging that so that you can grow and build and change. And that's what I heard both from just performance management in general, we don't do this well, we don't necessarily give or receive feedback well, or we don't necessarily invest in what our staff members might do beyond our departments or units. So there are 3 steps you can do on your own to help become more of an employer of choice, and then really taking steps to do better and to do different. One thing I want to talk about, performance management implies that someone has been working here and you have time to really sort of help support them in their growth. I now want to go back to when you first start working here, and this is near and dear to my heart. I know there are some new efforts regarding onboarding. Some units and departments do a great job. Others are not so steady in how to really onboard new employees. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about onboarding, Ashley.
Yeah. So thank you, Anne, and thank you for everything your team is doing to lead the onboarding efforts. So last year, what we've done is we redesigned our new employee orientation. So this orientation is offered every Monday, and it's available for employees. Well, they will learn in an interactive and engaging way more about the university. So it covers topics like our mission, our vision, 150 Forward, our leadership, some key policies, and ways to get connected and engaged with the university. With that orientation, there's also a campus tour, and there's lunch at the Fulbright Dining Hall. So we're really focused on building connections for new employees. Research shows that the first 90 days makes a big difference in an employee's decision to stay or leave with the university. So beyond that first day, we also offer on rotating Wednesdays a Benefits 101 orientation and a Workday 101 orientation. And in the next month or two, what I'm really excited for is we are going to launch a program called the Trail Ahead. And this is really focused on having tools and resources for employees and supervisors to help new employees acclimate, guide, and develop in their first 90 days to 6 months at the organization. So building upon orientation, we will have intentionally timed emails with training, resources, events on campus. We will have checklists for new employees and for the managers and the departments of those new employees, and we will have a new social event. And so the social event's really designed to help foster a sense of belonging and to build connections across the university. As Jim mentioned earlier, really focusing on one University of Arkansas, we recognize the importance of building those connections outside of your immediate area. And so the team has really focused a lot on this first 90-day experience to help onboard new employees to this organization that all of us in this room and watching so proudly work for.
Thank you. And anything you want to add on the importance of onboarding?
Yeah, let me add something on the faculty side. You
Yeah.
know, this has been something that we've been working on for quite some time. You know, thinking about what on the faculty specific side, what do they need to be successful in this onboarding process? And I have to give a shout out to my partner in crime in the provost's office, Anya Zaitchik, whose office has been doing really amazing stuff. Leading the what we call the Bridge program. And the Bridge program is really this multi-session over the course of a semester, thinking about what faculty need on an onboarding sense to get them familiar with our campus, to get them familiar with what it means to be a faculty member on our campus, what it means to be successful long-term in the promotional process. And I think this has been a shift over the last couple of years where, you know, we still have the traditional new faculty orientation. It's an important part of the process. But really being able to engage over the course of that first semester, very similar to what Ashley's talking about, the 90 days, that first semester is critical for your time here as a faculty member to think about how to get engaged, how to understand what's, you know, coming forward over the next few years in your life here as a faculty member. And so I'm really excited what Anya's office has been doing in that regard. And she even lets me co-lead one of the sessions, which is a lot of fun working with the new faculty to think about.
All right. Anything you wanted to add, Amy?
No, I think they
Okay.
covered.
Excellent. Well, Jim, I'm going to stick with you. We'll go back to a question from the campus as a whole. It kind of relates to policies and any updates in policy or workday. And the question is, how is flexibility being facilitated to support employees' personal and professional needs? Certainly a topic that's still top of mind post-pandemic.
Yeah, I think flexibility is one of the things that, you know, we're hearing from employees, specifically, you know, staff, that we, you know, want some flexibility in what we do, and I think there's space for that. I think one of the things that we really need to think about is what works best for individual units. There are definitely some units that have, based on what they do, a lot more engagement, a lot more interaction on a day-to-day, you know, frontline, working with students, working with other staff. You know, those units operate in a very different way than some of our, you know, we've traditionally called back office units that interact more through Teams, through email. And one of the things that we're working on collaboratively between HR, the Provost's office, and other units is, you know, really rethinking our work remote and flexible work policy. And I think that's something that was born out of the this post-pandemic moment. It's something that we've worked over the last couple of years to refine and really think about what's best for our university in terms of the working remote and the possibilities of either working remote or working flexibly. And I think there is space for that. And I think we want to really think about that, though, very much on the unit level. What works in my unit, and I have two staff who work partially remote during the week. What works for them is very different than what could work in other units. So it's a really unit-by-unit engagement. And that's, again, this whole idea of the one university framework, is that we're going to work collaboratively to create a campus-wide policy that enables some of this to happen. But at the same time, it's really a local, engagement with leadership at the local level, where individual supervisors and unit leaders are thinking about what's best for my unit and what's best for the service that I provide to either other staff or to campus at large, students and others. And I think that's the one thing that should be driving this conversation is what's best for the people that we serve. And I think we're all here. We all took these jobs because we're interested in service to, this higher mission of what we're here for research, discovery, supporting our state, and, supporting our students. And I think that's what is going to be driving these decisions and this reevaluation of this process.
Excellent, thank you. Amy?
And I think there's a level of training and education that come with that too, right? Because, post-pandemic, things were maybe a little more lax from the remote work, but we're back in it. We're full in. And so what we're finding is there's some accountability there and perhaps some training that we can blend into supervisor training. If you're going to allow an employee to work remote, then you have to be a supervisor who knows how to manage an employee who's working remote. And sometimes that's misunderstood. And sometimes it's the supervisor's not thinking that they have that accountability, and we have to instill that in them in order to make it work and ensure the employees know that they're just as accountable on a remote work day as they are here, and educating them on our ability to continue to be flexible and allow that. It relies on employees to ensure they're doing it the right way and not abuse that. And so, really educating people on what that means and what it looks like.
Awesome, thank you both. So we literally are on a campus surrounded by trails and paths. You talked about class comp earlier, and you mentioned the Trailhead onboarding. I want to kind of morph those two together. When you hear the term career pathways, and I know Jim already brought that up, what does that mean, and what is the vision for that on our campus moving forward? I'm going to send this to you, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you, Ann. So when we think about career pathways, what I think about it is where are you now and where do you want to go? There's probably, 100 people in this room. Have we all taken the same path to get where we are? No. Do we all have the same interest in what we want to do in our lives? No. We have the common denominator that we all want to work for the University of Arkansas and support students and advance our mission. But for where we want to go and what we want to do, that looks different, and that's unique for each individual. So now that we have the foundation of the classification and compensation framework, now our work is going to shift to look at identifying competencies for each of those job profiles. So what are those key skills, behaviors that you need to have for that specific role? And then a step further, what are the training opportunities that you can participate in to develop those competencies? And something I think we need to remember on campus, when we talk about training, it's not just sending somebody to a conference or completing a course. Training also looks like experience and exposure. So how can we do some job shadowing? How can we take on a stretch project? All of this in the advancement of helping us move where we want to go. And employees take ownership in that. We need to have some self-management and self-leadership skills to initiate those conversations with our supervisor and talk about what our career interests are and where we want to go. And we need to train supervisors to how to have those conversations and to support their employees in their growth. But one of the things that I personally think is really unique about working on a college campus, almost any job you can think of is on this campus. And you have access to so many great people that work here that you can take a job when you start here and really turn it into a lifelong career. And that can be on your own time schedule. That can be based on your interest. And so the work that we're going to do with Career Pathways really excites me as we look to identify what are those competencies for our new job profiles and how to help you develop into those areas.
Thank you. It's exciting. I'm going to say 5 words, Amy, and then you're going to say what they mean to you and what they mean to the campus. Are you ready?
Oh, gosh, I hope.
Full-service talent acquisition model. Ready, go.
Oh, I got this one.
Okay.
This is exciting. So on this campus, recruiting, I think my take on it is recruiting has meant we're submitting a transaction. Someone hired somebody and we routed it through an approval process in Workday, and someone in recruiting hit a button and approved it. And we want to get to this full-service recruiting model where Terry Chaddock here on my team is leading this initiative. And we want a recruiter to own that requisition from the time it's approved until we have an employee butt in seat, right? And we're piloting this. We're piloting it in student affairs. Jeremy has been gracious enough to let us pilot in his world. Clayton is allowing us to pilot in FAMA, and I think it's going really well. She has some amazing recruiters on her team. They've sourced talent where we have never thought that we would be able to do that before, and we're really excited about it. And what that does is it really puts consistency to the process. And it also makes for a really good candidate experience. I think hiring managers and especially leaders would probably say our candidate experience is not great. There's some flaws to it. We've got some, user issues that we have to figure out. But if you have one person, a recruiter who is dedicated to that, and they own that candidate from start to finish, they're going to make that a better candidate experience regardless. So not only the full service recruiting model, but really making candidate experience good for the candidate across the board. And while this is focused more on the staff side because faculty is complicated, and we'll leave that to the provost office, we're also willing to help with candidate experience there on some of the things that are just, transactional or whatever. And we're not to that point yet, but I'll call Anya out again. But this leads to the partnership piece that we have with the provost office that we've never had before. I mentioned to her one day, hey, we're going to put this focus on candidate experience on the staff side. Would you be willing to entertain this on the faculty side if she's the contact? Right? Because we're not subject matter experts on faculty, but we certainly could offer our help to them to help with candidate experience as long as it, landed there. And of course, Anya said, we're happy to, of course. So we're really excited about this one and to see where it goes. And Terry and her team, they're doing an amazing job. And we hope that the pilot turns into this model where our campus it's just natural. We have a recruiting team, and when we want to hire somebody, that's where we're going immediately.
And I think that, that candidate experience, is really critical, because I can think back to, when I was a faculty member on the job market. I applied to 75 different jobs. We had a good year for early American history that year. Doesn't happen very often. But, there were 75 different flavors of what that experience was like for you as a candidate, interacting with that institution. And that interaction, it does give you a perception of what that institution is going to do and how being an employee at that institution is going to work. From the basic of, some of the institutions, you submit your application, you never heard anything, ever, from the institution. Then other ones had really engaging, keeping engagement with you over a period of time, and really giving you updates on where they were and what they're doing with this process. And I think that just from that basic level is really critical to think about what do the people that we're trying to recruit think about us, so that on day one they have a positive experience with us. And I think that that's where, again, this collaboration is really critical, where, we're working on and we're talking about on what faculty get when they get an email from Workday. What does that wording mean to a faculty member in that auto message from Workday? That's very, important. And this is the first time we've gotten really, engagement to think about from day one, what's that going to look like? And I'm really, excited to work with Amy and her team on this, because they've been really collaborative in thinking about, well, what does that need? What does that need to be for a faculty member? And let's think about those things.
Awesome. I love it. Well, clearly we have a room full of talent that's already been what would be the acquisitioned? Here you are in the room. And I have a question for you. Regardless of your role, I want you to think of one word that sums up why the university is currently your employer of choice. What gives you value in working here? Everybody got a word? Think about one word. It could just be money, could be education, whatever that is for you. And when I count to 3, literally, please, in a call and response mood, say that word out loud so we can fill the room. 1, 2, 3. All right, so we just did your survey, Ashley. I wanted to surprise you. I know you had an announcement about an employee value proposition survey, but you don't need to do it now. No, I'm just kidding. We all work here for some reason, and I am excited that this will be the first time, I believe it's publicly announced, Ashley, what our team is working on with regard to employee value proposition.
Yes, thank you, Ann, and thank you all for your on-the-spot word for why you're working here. Like Ann mentioned, what we will be doing later this month, actually, is we will be releasing our first ever employer value proposition survey. And so what this will really help us understand from the voice of you, from those watching, for all of those working in our campus community, why you chose to work at the university. And why you chose to work here could look different if it was 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years, or 50 years ago, right? Or anywhere in between. But we want to hear why you chose to work here. We want to hear why you choose to stay working here. And this data, like Ann mentioned in the beginning, will help us make better informed decisions. This will help us tell our story. And so what is an employee value proposition statement? It outlines the value that you get in exchange for your hard work and contributions working for us. It is not a laundry list of our compensation and benefits, although that's usually part of it. It's looking at the perks. It's looking at the intrinsic value that you receive from working here. And so start to think about, so you're ready once the survey's deployed, why you work here. What does it mean for you to be working here? How is working at the University of Arkansas different than working for other employers? Once this survey is out, it'll be out for about 2 weeks. It'll be offered in English and in Spanish, and we will review the results to craft an EVP statement. And this statement we will be able to use throughout the entire employee life cycle. So this will help us from attraction to engagement and to retention, because we will be able to focus on and prioritize programs based on your voice and your input. And so we're asking for you to make that time and to give us honest answers in terms of why you're working here. And to help us gather more data in the fall, targeting October, we will do our first employee engagement survey. That will look more at the company's leadership, the work environment, your growth and progression opportunities. So that will go more in depth and have more questions about your overall engagement. But first we want to understand why you're working here. That will help us as we're talking to potential candidates, right? We might have a different statement for different colleges and units for what makes you unique. but still having an overarching one university EVP. And so stay tuned through Arkansas News, through messages from your leadership, from a message from HR. I know you all love to read our messages, but please be on the lookout for that because we can't craft it without the voice from you. This is not something HR or the provost office, like Ann said, it's not just on us, it's not just our responsibility, it's all of ours. And we can't make these statements without hearing from you. So we look forward, and I thank you in advance for completing these surveys.
Thank you, Ashley. I was thinking as you were talking, I come from a long line of facilitators who really try to practice a never about us without us mentality. And if you really want to be engaged in how do we make this an employer of choice, please make your voice heard by taking time to fill those surveys out. And if you are a supervisor of people, prioritize that for them. Help them understand that we do want to hear your voice. Speaking of that, we have time for a few more questions that came from the campus as a whole. And I think one indicator of being an employer of choice is who is in the room, but another indicator is how much turnover do we have. So I'm going to circle back to you, Amy, talking about the class comp project and its success. One of the questions was, how has turnover been trending since the class comp project and broader since the 150 Forward Strategic Plan?
Yeah. In my opinion, I think we have made significant strides there. I mean, we're seeing that we're able to retain talent where maybe we weren't able to do that before, whether it's in, a research job or a skilled trade job. So I think we're doing really good. It's really hard to define turnover because there's so many ways to define it here. And someone mentioned earlier, we're really getting to a point with our data that we're going to be able to track that on a larger scale. Right now, we're kind of siloed to where we may know turnover in FAMA and we may know turnover on the academic side. And what we see from that is that we're in a really good place with it. And I think we owe that to class comp and being able to truly at least start at a point to pay our employees equitable to the market and, start getting everybody where they need to be.
Great, thank you. Next question comes to you, Jim, and I think you've certainly answered bits and pieces along the way, but it's kind of in the spirit of that divide or that perceived divide between faculty and staff, and you are now a faculty sandwich in between two staff-focused folks. It appears that much has been done to help make the university an employer of choice for staff positions. Could you explain what has been done to retain existing faculty and recruit new faculty? In essence, what's the employer of choice strategy for faculty?
I think, there's a lot of shared, issues here between faculty and staff, right? That yes, we are in two different categories, but we share so much of the same commonalities of why do we want to work here, what are the values that we have, and then what are the things, that make this place for a faculty member the place I want to stay for my career. And it's, when I came here 15 years ago, it was very common for faculty to, say, well, I came here and I thought I was going to leave after a couple of years, and 15 years later, I'm still here. And I think, that's a recurring theme among faculty. And I think that's really, a testament to, that this is a good place to be a faculty member and to work. But I think we can keep doing more to think about how do we continue to recruit and retain new faculty and retain existing faculty. I think three different things that I wanted to share. One is, we're in the process now, we're kind of at the tail end, to really look at our promotional pathways for faculty. Back in 2018, we created for the first time promotional pathways for our non-tenure track professorial rank faculty, and that's really grown over the last couple of years of faculty that were hired in that 2018, 2019, 2020 moment, and are now going up for promotion and have a dedicated promotional pathway. And I think that is really critical, because in that promotional path for our non-tenured track faculty, we're rewarding them for excellent work that they've done and recognition of what they've done in teaching and outreach and in research that's getting recognition on a national level. And I think that's something that we need to continue to advance. And one of the key places we're advancing that is we've been working collaboratively with the Faculty Senate over this semester to create new promotional pathways for our instructors. And I think creating a new promotional path for that population of faculty is going to pay dividends long term in terms of retention. We have some amazing instructors who are doing amazing things in the classroom, really working with students and really advancing the student success piece. And this is what, you know, the chancellor started off with. This piece of employer choice affects everything else. And I think we have faculty that are on the front lines working with students, advancing student success, that we need to really think about, you know, how do we recognize them? How do we give them a promotional pathway that they can advance? Because the things they're doing are so critical to our campus, but also are cutting edge on the national stage as well. So that process is going forward. So we hope in the coming months we'll have a final promotional pathway set for the instructors, which I think is a great advance for us. Second thing is, you know, some of the work that the colleges are doing in collaboration with the Office of Faculty Affairs and the Provost's office. We're doing a lot of Anya is doing a lot of great things in her office to really think about collaboratively working with faculty across campus. So a couple things in brief, you know, we created a process where we have a faculty fellow for honorific awards. We have faculty who are doing amazing things on this campus, cutting edge research that is, you know, bar none above what our peers are doing. We need to figure out ways to help those faculty, to identify those faculty and help them get membership in some of the leading national and international honorific societies and nominate them for awards that we know that they are a shoo-in to win. But it's the process. If you've been a faculty member and if you are thinking about nominating someone for an award, that's a big thing. That's a 50-page document you have to compile. You need to get people from all over the world to write letters of recommendation. That's what this process is supposed to help with. How do we identify, how do we work on applications, and how do we get these faculty recognized for the amazing work that they've done. Anya's always doing a lot on mentoring. I talked about the Bridge program earlier as well. Those things, I think, are going to pay dividends for retaining our faculty and mentoring circles and onward. Last thing, real brief, is, you know, the faculty compensation project was very different than the staff project, but I think is a really important piece of the puzzle here, is that, you know, that we need to be working to compensate our existing faculty at a market rate, or moving towards that market rate, and really thinking about, on the new faculty side, we now have data to know what is that market rate that we need to be hiring faculty in at, and really attracting that top tier faculty from day one. And I think, you know, the faculty compensation study is coming to a close on, you know, when we implement phase 2 in July and August of this year, but it's not done. We're really looking at and excited to be looking at, you know, now that we have this data, now that we've completed the first phase of this project, you know, where are some issues, where are things that we can really continue to address on the compensation side? And that this amount of data that we have now is, we've never had that data before. And I think that's going to enable us to really continue to advance on the compensation front. Excellent,
thank you. I'm going to move the conversation from faculty to another important F team on campus, and that's FAMA. And a shout out to everyone here from FAMA. Not that this is just about folks from FAMA, but one of the questions, and I'm going to give this to you, Amy, that I even heard in training supervisors during the class comp implementation process, What plans are there to focus on skilled trade positions? And are pay rates going to catch up to the market? As Jim said, they're working to do that with faculty.
Yeah, we put a lot of time and effort into the skilled trades position, both pre-implementation and then another round post-implementation, because we wanted to make sure that we got it right. And I'm confident that with the skilled trades that we got it right and that we're paying equitable to the market. And I think we've gotten a lot of great feedback from that. A lot of happy people. I've heard from a few of Jeremy's people in housing, the difference that it made, and we've gotten some good feedback in FAMA as well. I think where it becomes difficult here on this campus is it's the comparison that we get and the questions that we get a lot is, you know, I'm an electrician or a master electrician, and I can go down the road and work for a contractor and make much more than I can make here. And what we have to take in consideration here is there's a lot of other things that factor into that market, which are our benefits that we offer, the flexibility that we have, regardless of what shift, you might be a day shift or you might be an evening shift, but that's your shift. Rather than in the contract world, it's a much different environment. There's not the flexibility. There's no specific schedule. A lot of times there's not very good benefits that are offered. And so what I usually provide when I get this question is, this is what we can offer, and we know that we know that we got it right and we're equitable here on our campus, but, you've got to do what's right for you. And in those scenarios, will we ever be able to compete with those, contractors and pay those high levels? The answer to that is probably no, but we know we're going to pay our people fairly here. And we know that we're going to be able to offer them benefits, and we know that they're going to have a flexible schedule. And so,
Awesome.
it's really just kind of educating around what we have here versus the
Right.
difference.
Well, I want to ask you all one little quick question in this effort to be fair. Off the cuff, in a sentence or less, why is the university your employer of choice? Amy?
It's my employer of choice because I personally am passionate about the work that I do, and I feel like there's a lot of experience that I have that I can provide to the campus to make a difference.
That's a sentence.
That's all
Great.
I get.
Thank you. Jim?
As a faculty,
Always cutting me off.
Hey, they only had one word. You get one sentence.
as a faculty member, it was all about, working with students, being able to teach, the courses that I love to teach, and really, doing the research that really made the difference for me. As an administrator now, it's about the people. It's about great people that you get to work with to really solve problems collaboratively.
I did ask a historian one sentence or less.
That's a
Thank you,
problem.
Jim. And finally, Ashley?
And for me, I would say it's the ability to do what I love to do, and that's to help individuals grow and feel empowered. And so having the trust and flexibility from my leadership team and the campus to do that brings a lot of meaning to my work, and getting to do that here is a privilege.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you all to sit tight and give them some appreciation while Ann makes her way back to close us out. Oh, while the Chancellor makes his way back.
I want to thank Ann and our panelists for the great conversation around being an employer of choice. My word is opportunity. You didn't ask, but I thought I'd share. I'm at the mic. And that opportunity is the ability to take the University of Arkansas and make it more meaningful to the people in this state. And that opportunity exists everywhere. at this university. You know, I was at Peter Unger's celebration the other night, and he talked about it. We can make this university even more special than it is to the people of the state of Arkansas. We can improve our network system, Steve, so that modernize it, right? So we can do much more with our network system. Clayton, we've got much to do with our building process, so we can enhance it and make it something that allows us to build more affordably, so that we don't tax our students in ways that interferes with their ability to be successful. Enrollment, in the back of the room, we got a lot of work to do. You're doing a great job, but the opportunity to make this university more, make it something that students from all over the state have even greater ability to engage and experience. I mean, that's the opportunity that we live with every day at the University of Arkansas, and that's why you matter, because you are the ones who are going to activate that for the University of Arkansas. And we can be that city on a hill, that city on a hill that makes this entire state better. And so thank you, panelists, for your work, because you're working every day. And I love the notion that Ann mentioned, and both Anns mentioned that this is not a destination, it's a journey towards continuous improvement. Just an announcement. Our next session, Town Hall, will be April 15th, Tax Day, so you won't forget it, Tuesday, from 9:30 to 10:30. And so we invite you to come and join us. We will have a healthy conversation around student success. So thank you for your attendance today, and go Hogs. Thank you.